Going into this, you should know that we would be talking about some plot-heavy material. But since it's the internet and 2017, here is your obligatory spoiler warning. So, let's talk about RWBY. RWBY is a show I initially thought of in a negative light because of the early low-quality animation. However, when it came out in theaters, my siblings, who were fans prior, really wanted me to join them, and I ended up watching Volume 1 in the theater, and I fell in love. Something about the characters and the world just hooked me, even with the less than stellar animation. I vowed at that moment I was only going to watch the show in theaters, so I did when Volumes 2 and 3 came around. And I was ready the moment Volume 4 came out. Now is when we get to the title of the video, The Problems of Volume 4. I didn't think Volume 4 was bad, but I do think it had some issues that will be discussed at large later. Many would attribute Volume 4's shortcomings to the switch in animation programs. Previously, Rooster Teeth had been using Poser Pro, but for Volume 4 they switched to a new program called Maya. This change in animation must have affected a lot behind the scenes. However, in my opinion, I don't think it really shows past that. With every episode comes its own ups and downs, however, so let's get this thing started. Before I actually start, I need to say, Volume 4 had 6 World of Remnant videos. I wouldn't think these are such a problem if they weren't a clustered mess. But Volume 4 released 4 of these before the volume officially even started, and it's annoying to get so much background in a tell, don't show style video. Not really a problem as much as it is a personal gripe, but whatever, let's move on to the actual show. The episode starts with the League of Super Evil. These guys' personalities at a face value are very typical. We have quiet tough guy, smart guy, and crazy guy. Also, let me say it is a crime that Mercury and Emerald are basically reduced to background characters this season. Oscar and his whole scene really throws off the pacing of this chapter, but now to the real meat of the episode, and that's the Geist fight. This fight isn't bad per se, but it's nothing compared to the fights the series has had before or after. There's a lot of questionable decisions on how this entire fight is framed. Like, how come Ren can't cut through the rocks but RWBY can just fine? Why is this entire scene almost focused on John failing to do anything right? It makes most of this fight seem like a gag. Also, RWBY's whole rose blur thing is fairly inconsistent. It started out as speed, but now it's just kind of a flurry of roses. And that can somehow morph with Nora. Most of this isn't really a crime in the sense of bad writing / storytelling, but just weird inconsistencies compared to the rest of the series. From the end of the fight, the chapter is fine. It plays like a normal RWBY episode. Also, shout out to the crewbie for giving me my new staple hoodie. I love this thing. Also, Volume 4 does have my favorite theme of the entire series, so bonus points there. Now on to Chapter 2. A reoccurring problem this volume is that it focuses on Weiss, but not for as long as it should. Her arc makes sense, but it feels rushed. Also, another thing that feels overall rushed is Ren's sudden personality. It makes sense that he's traumatized by the signs of a village destroyed, but in the past he's never seemed to be angry or upset by any other traumatizing encounters with Giant Grim. Finally, a Blake episode. Blake is easily the worst goddamn thing about this volume. 2 seconds in, she already pulls her weapon on someone who just wants a chat. Yang, however, is probably the best thing about this volume. These scenes are a subtle but fascinating way of showing how she's adjusted to her one-armed life. And the insights to her PTSD, while short, is a really interesting step back from the boisterous pun maker she usually is. The fight at the end of this episode also feels really clunky. The clones make no sense to gravity, and Sun summons like 12 after having to stand still for his last time summoning his clones. There's a theory going around that these clones are more or less powered by the sun, and I like that, but in this scene it's still incredibly excessive. However, Sun makes Blake's part of the volume immediately more watchable. Long story short, this entire fight feels excessively floaty and unnecessary. Also, this last scene with the Grim Metroid is never quite explained. Yang's plot remains to be the best in the volume. Well, Crow just kinda comes out of nowhere, and then Raven just kinda comes out of nowhere. Just like most of the side plots in this volume. Strange. While Menagerie is beautifully modeled, my glaring issue is that Blake is Faunus royalty, yet no one has once brought it up. You'd think that Team RWBY would have run into someone who's been to Menagerie before. Hell, even these two show that Blake Belladonna is a household name down there. However, the parents are incredible characters, and Sun's interaction with them manages to make me ignore all the weird plot holes. Also, was this scene of them talking about Adam really necessary? Like, we all knew you guys were evil anyways. Weiss's story continues to feel underdeveloped. It's incredible that Blake and Weiss's arcs are polar opposites. Weiss's story feels like it's too short and needs length, while Blake stretches out smaller points for way too long. On the other hand, Ironwood continues to be incredible in short doses. As for the Tyrion fight, I mostly have no qualms with it. It's this volume's best fight scene by far. This does, however, mark the start of RWBY barely using her scythe as a scythe, just as a gun. Now, I haven't really mentioned it up until this point, but Oscar strives on the "what the actual shit is happening" clause. However, I don't think there's a way they could have done Oscar without kind of just shoehorning him in, so I don't consider it a problem per se. As for the rest of this chapter, overall no gripes. Bonus points. This episode continues the problem I have with the World of Remnant videos. It tells way more than it shows. And I'll be honest, I completely forgot about this whole Life in Dark story until the rewatch of the volume. I do really like this moment between Gira and Blake though. Compared to the rest of her arc, this little moment between them is just really nice. Also, this whole bad luck semblance is bullshit. I mean, if it's bad luck, then what is this go-go gadget bird thing he's always doing? Aside from Ren once again gaining this sudden personality, I have no qualms with this episode. Good on you, RWBY. Hazel the Ticket Machine Puncher is one of my favorite bits of the series, but the fact that he's so rapidly introduced and then gone the next second is upsetting to me. My biggest problem is that Ren is still developed so poorly. It's upsetting but unsurprising that they probably didn't think of this for Ren at volumes 1 through 3. He only ever started showing personality this volume, but as stated earlier, that's not surprising. Also, this mom jog he does as he runs into the cave made me laugh way harder than it should have on my second viewing. Weiss, take off those goddamn heels, this is a stealth mission. Weiss once again gets shoved to the background. It's a shame really, because her story with her family is great. And Sun gives the speech that Blake so desperately needed in this volume. Fuck, dude, I don't know if I'm just super happy that no one died, but I really like the ending of volume 4. It has a really solid final act, and I'm very satisfied with how it went. Overall, my point isn't that the volume was bad, and in rewatching it, I found that it's a lot better in one sitting than in weekly intervals. If you didn't already know, as of the time of uploading, RWBY Volume 5 is premiering tomorrow, or the 14th if you're not going to see it in theaters. And I am excited. So I'm looking forward to another volume, and maybe another one on RWBY coming soon. So, until then, I've been RWBY Rocks, and thanks for watching. See ya!